Good morning and happy Friday. Welcome to another week's episode of Money Matters, hosted by myself, Randy Mendez-Parra, with the Mendez Home Team at eXp Realty, along with Sharon Thompson, my partner at Alameda Home Mortgage. Hey, Sharon.
Good morning.
How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm excited. I'm pumped. It's Friday. I was just saying on one of my other shows this morning, I don't know if you watched my other morning show, but I really did you see that? I jumped right into the mud with like debating Enneagrams. What did you think of it?
I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really good information. That was the Mom's Work Less one, right?
Yeah. So, yep. So we've done a couple. So this is my third morning show, or my third show of the morning. So I'm like, where have I been all morning? But yeah, but I'm excited. So I'm energized. I've got a couple new clients I'm meeting with, and I'm ready to kick butt. Can you hear me okay? I thought I had a little feedback, but.
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. All right. So on that note, speaking of kicking butt, today what we're talking about is basically everything that you can negotiate within a contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is really powerful. And I think it was funny because it was a little bit of a learning curve for me because I was like, well, what else? Well, what else? And then as my list kept going, I had to crack up at some of them. So we'll just dive in. And obviously some of the obvious is like the very first one is price, right?
Right.
So you can obviously negotiate price. And when you think of price, I mean, there's so much negotiation you can do around price, right? You can negotiate purchase price. You can negotiate appraised price. You can negotiate, I mean, even price itself has like 4 different negotiations within it, which we are learning even more in this market, right, Sharon?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, what a client texted us this morning, what they're willing to offer. I about fell out of my seat. I'm like, okay.
But I loved it because the clients, and let me rephrase that. I hate where the market is in general. Like it's just so brutal for so many buyers. But for my individual buyer that actually has the ability to compete, I get excited. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Get excited. So obviously price is one of those first things that you can negotiate. Another one is inspections. And so this is really important as well. You know, right now, what I'm advising a lot of my clients is still get those inspections because you don't ever want to go into anything blindly. You want to know, but repairs are followed by inspections. So right now it's really powerful to either accept, and maybe any visual defects or known defects of the home. And it's also very powerful to basically ask for nothing and be willing to, and we've said this in a previous show, but basically take those inspections as your own to-do list. That's a really powerful negotiation right now.
Right.
Another thing is closing timeline. And again, I think that this is something that we're seeing a huge difference in right now because sellers are very limited themselves in inventory and where they can go. So right now, closing time and occupancy time are two massive negotiators that we are seeing a ton. We just actually closed a house yesterday, Sharon, and and they came into my office because we celebrate our clients. So my experienced team came into my office and they're like, okay, we have everything ready to go, but when are we celebrating? And I was like, in 2 months. And they were like, what? And I was like, the cost of getting this one meant that it was a 60-day rent back. And so our clients closed on the home and they own the home, but they're not touching the keys for 60 days.
That to me is we're seeing that more and more. More and more are these extended escrows, these rent backs, and just trying to anything to appease to the sellers to be able to get into their next house.
Yep, without a doubt. And so some other ones that are not as monumental, I guess, in the negotiations, but appliances, furniture, those are other things that we're seeing as well. And, for me on my sellers, I always say, let's just make certain appliances by separate negotiation and maybe we bundle them in and maybe we don't. But just so that people know, you don't have to consider all of your appliances. And I don't know why this one's been coming up recently, but the oven's been coming up. I will say that, that one, for the most part, I think all in the industry would agree with me. Typically, the oven does convey with the house. I've been seeing a lot of oven sting, and I'm like, yes, oven sting. So
that's crazy.
But kind of on a fun Friday note, I have to tell you, what do you think is one of the weirdest things or most unique things we've ever negotiated? Can you try to guess what's one of the most unique things we've ever negotiated in a deal?
I I cannot think of something off the top of my head. I mean,
So,
the standard stuff, not anything like, did somebody ask to keep the cat or?
so it was the pet, it was the dog.
No, it was not.
It was, and it worked out really well because here is the thing. The dog was home during the showing and was super loving and affectionate, and they were like, oh buddy, you could stay with the house. It was kind of like one of those things, and it just so happened that the seller was relocating to where pets weren't able to go on the relocation, and so it just happened to work and be kind of more of a rehoming that was, you know, it wasn't like an actual like, hey, write the dog up in my write the dog up in my negotiations. But point being is that that's one of those one-off things that I will say I had a client one time that was like, you know, can we negotiate the fish tank and the snake tank or whatever? And we okay, we'll put those in. I mean, it was 15 out, but that's like each his own, right? And so those are some of the fun things, but just sharing that as a fun Friday. Going back to a little bit more of the traditional things, transfer tax can also be negotiated. So again, right now in trying to write very clean offers and very strong offers, if our clients have the ability to pick up the entire transfer tax, that's a good negotiation tactic. Escrow fees are also another thing. Title fees, HOA fees, and then timelines. Timelines can also be negotiated. So again, right now we're trying to minimize timelines so that our sellers know that the sellers, our buyers know, like, we mean business. We're coming in, we're removing as many contingencies as quick as we can. So timelines on inspections, timelines on appraisals. Side note, we all know we got to give our lenders some love. They can't control those appraisers. Sharon, I messaged her yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, it's appraisal day. She's like, they need 48 more hours. And I was like, oh.
I will tell you that what's funny is that, yes, you guys are negotiating shorter timelines, and and I keep getting them, and I'm like, oh my God, all right, we'll do it. But the lenders, because we are still so busy, we have still those like extended timelines, and you guys are going shorter and we're going longer, but we're still getting it done. But it's definitely, I mean, I think it's a huge negotiating power, and we can get it done. It's just ordering that appraisal first day, you know, the minute the offer comes in.
And we appreciate you. And, you know, I mean, I think all of us in the industry understand that, you know, we can go into something and we can do everything we can to make it happen, but there's no guarantees, right? You know, I was really taken aback. We competed really heavy for one property in Reno, and you actually helped me in the competition. You were not the primary lender, but I basically wanted to be able to say I had dual approval and I had some backup here. And so you helped us to speak to strength on the acceptance. And then, you know, we get in and I'm like, okay, we got it. You know, I'm so excited. And as a buyer's agent, it's not, you know, I don't take for granted when the seller chooses our offer. I see it as, you know, time to deliver, right? So time to make sure that we exceed everything that we said we would in the offer. And the first thing that happens on this one is they tell us they need 65 days for the appraisal. Like, I was like, what? Like, is this an error? Is this a mistake? And here's the crazy thing is, I'm over here kind of processing like, oh my gosh, like, how do I go back after they accept our offer out of multiple offers and say, side note, it looks like, you know, we're going to need 65, 70 days for the appraisal. To much of my shock, with the lender conveying that the agent is an experienced agent, they understand some things are not in control. They were able to explain it to the seller. They came back and gave us an extension immediately on escrow and appraisal. And I sat there like shocked. And thankfully we were able to attend the appraisal and explain the situation. And we actually ended up getting it back in 2 weeks. So we ended up getting it back in time. But I think that that's important. I think it's important that when you lean into your real estate professional, you have two things that are happening. One, that they're getting creative and they're getting very aggressive in every item that they can negotiate on your behalf to strengthen your offer, and or if you're on the sell side, you know, to maximize what you get. But make sure that there's a second component of they understand, you know, possibility, reality, and what else might need to be structured behind it if that can't come completely to fruition. Does that make sense, Sharon?
It does. Absolutely. It's, you know, like we've talked about before, it's having professionals on your side that understand the process, that aren't naive to the obstacles that we have in this industry. Like you said, it was probably a unique property. That's why it was a 65-day appraisal. And anybody else on the other side of that would know, yeah, it is a unique property. We've had some in Yerington that have taken us 45 days. We've had some in Fernley that have taken 35 days. So they're blowing our initial contracts, but there's not one single professional agent on the other side that doesn't understand that. And it is, does speak to, like you said, talking to a seasoned professional that's not going to be like, what? We have to. It's like, we're finding this out week one. Easy fix. Let's just set everybody up for success from here,
Yeah, I think that's a huge point too. I think a lot of times that we in the industry, this is what we do day in and day out. And I think we can take it for granted that, okay, she understands, and you're 100% correct. This property has dual zoning, right? So it has mixed use zoning, which is what caused it to be a different situation. But so I think we take for granted that I understand that, and the listing agent understands that, and the listing agent's going to even explain that to his seller, who's going to, the seller who's going to understand that. But then we have this buyer over here. We have this buyer over here that could very well just be feeling fire hosed and is already maybe giving notice on their rental and is, making moves accordingly. So I think that that's the next component that you need to be very aware of the consumer on the buy and the sell side, because that seller might already be moving on as well. So you need to make sure that you have a professional that, yes, again, is going to negotiate these things, but understand the additional layers behind a lot of these negotiations. For instance, a fixture, which is another item on my bullet list. A fixture is not so much a massive negotiation. It can be pretty black and white. It's the ceiling fan, right? But damages are something that can be negotiated. So let me just tell you about that. In the offer and acceptance on one of the final pages, you have two different choices of what you're going to offer the seller in damages. And one of them is basically the earnest money deposit being the sole recourse of the failure to perform on the buyer side. The other one is actual damages. Well, that's one of those that you, again, need a really high level professional that is going to help you to really evaluate that, because I think initially the first thought is, well, heck no, just go with the earnest money. You're out, the $1,000 or the $2,000 and you have no other skin in the game. But if I have a buyer that absolutely wants this house is everything they've ever wanted. They want to put every single thing into the game, and the location is, a block from grandma's and yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. I might say to them, guys, let's go with actual damages, because what that's saying, they're going to make the decision, but I might say, hey guys, you might think about going with actual damages. Why? Because providing that the inspections are fine and you have no deal breakers there, and providing all of your other contingencies are fine. This is just saying, if I've satisfied all contingencies and I decide to bail, you can come after me for extra. If that seller's moving across the country, that's going to deliver a new level of security, right? That's going to really say, you know what, these people are committed to my property. So again, it's so important that you're leaning into professionals that help you to look at other perspectives of how you can tweak, leverage, and get creative in these negotiation points and understand the more serious ones, such as damage, because that's huge. A seller moving across country with 4 U-Hauls and a job transfer and 2 mortgages. And I mean, we could start talking about tens and $20,000s of dollars in damages. So that's not a little one, but again, depending on the buyer, it may be one the buyer would be willing to take for the property. So you have to inform them as to the ability to negotiate that, and then what the ramifications look like on the win and the fall, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that that's a really good one. And kind of tying in with that one, earnest money. I'm also noticing something interesting right now. I'm noticing earnest money, which has for years and years, it's kind of just been very standard. And I'm seeing that creep up. And I think that that's kind of skin in the game. Are you seeing that as well on offer, Sharon?
I have, but what I would tell you is that I think another reason we're seeing it creep up is, one, like you said, the sellers want to see more skin in the game. But our particular area, I believe our escrows have always been low. Usually it's 1%, 0.5%, and we're usually $1,500, $1,500, and that's actually not common in the rest of the country. So when we see this influx of California buyers, they're shocked that we're only like, okay, we just need $1,000. They're like, okay. So for us, it's uncommon, but for a lot of the buyers that have been coming to our area, it's not. And so they're actually thinking these 5,000 and these these higher escrow deposits are normal. So
you are
normal for others.
So right. Money on the head. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my California buyers, and I said, "All right, what are we doing for Earnest Money?" And he said 10%, and I was like, "What?" Like I was like, "That's 45K." I was like, "You don't need 45K for Earnest Money," and he was totally comfortable with it. He's like 45 grand, and I was like, "No, we don't need 45 grand." I don't need that much. I was like, you know what? Let's do 4. Like 4. And he's like, really? And I was like, yes. So you're 100% right. And again, I think that we shared today a very long laundry list, and we'll come back in and have our marketing team recap the bullet points of all the items that we can negotiate for you. But the point being is that I think it's important, again, to know that you are making fully informed decisions, right? Don't just say, okay, I'll pay all HOA fees. Right? Is there a CIC in that HOA? Like, are there special assessments? Are there, like, you need to know that, what that could mean. Don't just go into stuff saying yes, 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 and not understand the full parameters. So as always, if you already have a real estate professional and a lending professional, lean into them, use them. But if you don't, we would be honored to have that opportunity. Again, Randy Mendez with the Mendez Home Team at eXp Realty. And you can get me at 775-379-8344. And Sharon, what's a good number for you?
949-201-8940.
So on that note, we hope you have an amazing weekend. Feel free to give us a call. We'd love to write an offer and get you in contract if you're looking, or if you're a seller and you're kind of contemplating being on the market, we'd like to talk to you about our safe selling process and how we can really help you to see probably the highest potential return you've ever been looking at on your property. So give us a call either way, and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks, Sharon.
Happy Friday.
All right. Bye.